Perth Model Railway Show was held on the 25th-26th of June 2022 at the Jewess Centre in Perth. As ever, it proved to be a very popular event, attracting large crowds. Here are the N-gauge layouts exhibited at the show. White Hills Pass, modelled in N-gauge and exhibited by the Perth Model Railway Group. The layout depicts a scene in the USA between Chicago and Santa Fe on the route to California. The main aim of the layout is to watch trains go by, so the track design of a double back loop allows trains to be seen more than once on their journey from the storage yard. There is only one siding on the layout which serves the distribution company, so switching is infrequent on the line. Locomotives and rolling stock are in various liveries, including Union Pacific, Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, SOO and Amtrak. Most of the rolling stock is of modern design, but some heritage trains also run to give variety. Most of the models on display are made by Kato, Atlas and Athearn. Track and points are Pico Code 80 and are operated by Pico motors using toggle switches. The layout is of lightweight construction using softwood for the frame and insulation board for the top on which sits the track and scenery. The scenery was made using polystyrene blocks, contoured then covered with plaster bandages, which were then painted and covered with various scatter materials from the Woodland Scenics range. The layout can be operated as DC or DCC. St Andrews and Guard Bridge, modelled in N-gauge and exhibited by the East Neuk Model Railway Club. This is a model of two real places, as they were in the 1955 to 1965 period of British Railways operation, with both steam and diesel traction in use. St Andrews is a town on the east coast of Scotland, now famous as the home of golf, Scotland's premier university and a world-class tourist destination. What many people didn't realise that in the 1800s the ancient town was in decline, so to revive the town's fortunes a branch line railway was built and the town became a tourist resort. The original branch was taken from the East Coast Main Line to enter St Andrews from the north in 1852 via the village of Guardbridge. In 1887 the town was also reached by rail from the south and became part of the Fife Coastal Railway, which was connected to the East Coast Main Line at both ends. Our model is based on the final 10 years of through trains, as the line to the south closed in 1965, followed by total closure in 1969. During this period the regular trains were also supplemented by various tourist specials and rail tours, resulting in a good variety of passenger trains that we can realistically run. The layout's baseboard and frames are built from plywood, the legs being a quick assemble slot together design. The track is Pico and powered by conventional DC power. The rolling stock is ready to run items from Graham Farish and Dapol. All the buildings on the layout are scratch built, based mainly on photographs, as few of them still exist. Upper Cumtwich, modelled in N-gauge and exhibited by Les Neerlich. Upper Cumtwich is a small depot for emergency servicing and refuelling of diesel locos, set in South Wales, north of Swansea. Various classes of loco, 08, 37, 58, 60, 66, 67, 68 and 70 can be seen, belonging to different railway companies. Track is Pico Code 55 with points operated by Tortoise point motors, which also change track polarity. All scenics, buildings, trees etc. are scratch built. The signal box was salvaged from a previous layout. New All, modelled in N-gauge and exhibited by the Bird family. Like many people during the first lockdown, we turned to modelling for our sanity. Being a fan of KIRKTON and already having a layout built, we wondered what we could do. Our son Alexandra was getting to the age where he couldn't really come to shows when we were working with the model tree shop. We thought that an exhibition layout would be a good way of keeping him occupied while we worked when the exhibitions resumed. Coincidentally, we have since stopped taking the business out to shows. KIRKTON was still going to be our choice of system. This layout had to be portable, easy to operate, but also had to be entertaining for the public. Hence a nice roundy layout was conceived with up to 4 trains running at once. As this really is our hobby, we don't want to face a barrage of questions about prototypical this and that, so we decided that Rule 1 should apply, hence the name New All, being an anagram of Rule 1. For reliability, we got the boards professionally cut by White Rose Models, and the layout is carried around in 4 1 metre by 75 centimetre sections so that they will fit in the car. Leven Bank, modelled in N-gauge and exhibited by Glenrothes Model Railway Club. Leven Bank is a fictitious station on the ScotRail region of the East Coast Main Line. Passenger trains from other regions run through the station, which is set in the post-privatisation era, 1995 onwards, with 4 through running lines and 2 terminal lines. The station has 2 island platforms where express trains can stop or run through, with the local services using the terminal platforms. A freight line runs either side of the passenger lines, allowing for passenger freight trains should the platform lines be occupied. The station is a modern building built on raised ground above the platforms. Freight trains drop off or pick up wagons at the cement works, container terminal or freight sidings, or can pass through the whole length of the layout. The small container terminal serves the local businesses in the Leven Bank area. Sidings serve the track engineering workshop and DMU servicing depot. The cement works has a dispatch shed for loading cement tankers or bagged products into vans under cover. There are also sidings for rakes of wagons to be externally loaded, such as hoppers for gravel and sand traffic. Empty wagons are held in the storage sidings until required. A tram shuttle service from Leven Bank to the station, Sports Centre and Market Garden runs regularly. Eglinton Junction, modelled in N-gauge and exhibited by Ayr Model Railway Club. Eglinton Junction was bought from Glenrothes Model Railway Club, which used to be Blackwood Junction, as our club running layout at the end of 2016, as we had retired Anvilton, and while work progressed on our new double-deck show layout. Eglinton Junction has proved such a credit to its original builders that it has been modified as our show layout until the others are also available. As you can see, we have one older building for sale, so that gives us space for redevelopment in future, and are just about to create an alternative heritage centreboard on the corner, currently occupied by the leisure centre. The layout is N-gauge and in the main runs stock off the shelf. We run mainly modern image trains on what we now locate in the mythical location somewhere right in the centre of the country, so that we can run predominantly east and west coast liveries. We are not era specific, and that pesky Thomas even sneaks on with his friends for a bit of mischief every now and then. As a group, we enjoy our hobby and like what we run, and more importantly, run what we like, so anything goes. You may well see even the odd steam special traversing the metals, as well as a foreigner trying their hand on British steel. LISWORTH Bay, modelled in N-gauge and exhibited by John Spence. The London and South Western Railway forged its way southwest during the railway age of the 19th century, sprouting branch lines to coastal towns on its way. LISWORTH Bay was one of these. Originally only a terminus, during the Great War the line was extended to serve a nearby ordnance depot, and the road access to the station was interrupted by the installation of a level crossing across this extension. Improvements in roads in the post-World War II years also saw a decline in its use, and the extension was due to be lifted during the 1950s. However, the increased tension of the Cold War years encouraged the government to retain it as a precautionary measure. The branch was rationalised shortly after nationalisation and became a single line. The track plan simplified, and part of the original down line retained only as a storage siding. Trains are typical of those seen on the region. Portions of express passenger trains split at the various stations en route reach the terminus alongside local passenger workings, freight, parcels, newspaper and milk traffic. The layout is modular with the fiddle yard at 90 degrees to the scenic section. The original format featured only the station approach and the terminus, but it has been extended by the addition of 2 more boards, the first featuring a farm and the second a 60-foot high viaduct across the River Liss. KIRKTON, modelled in N-gauge and exhibited by Falkirk Model Railway Club. Built simply on an 8-foot by 4-foot board, KIRKTON is an imaginary village set in the 1960s at the end of the steam era and the introduction of diesel power. The village sits on a main line where mainline trains occasionally stop. However, there are more frequent stopping local passenger services as well as passing freight. Apart from a shop, pub and school, there is also a busy goods yard with some industrial units. This new layout demonstrates to the beginner how to have an N-gauge layout that could be adapted to fit in any spare room or garage. WHYTE, modelled in N-gauge and exhibited by Farnham and District Model Railway Club. WHYTE is a small town on the important secondary main line between Bristol and Gloucester, modelled as it was around the early 1950s. The Bristol and Gloucester Railway was built under the guidance of Brunel as broad gauge, opened in 1844. The GWR expected to buy it, but in 1845 the Midland outbid them, breaking the GWR's monopoly of Bristol. As well as local trains, there were many long-distance expresses with destinations such as Bournemouth, Manchester, Bradford and Newcastle. Goods trains were mostly to or from Bristol or Avonmouth docks. Motive power was mainly LMR tender locos, e.g. 4Fs, Jubilees and Black 5s, with a few GWR and later LNER locos. We aimed to produce a typical selection of trains and stock for the time. To the southwest, left as seen, the line comes out of a tunnel and along the side of a valley. To the northeast right, it starts to cross the valley. There is a 30-metre height difference between the highest and lowest points modelled, 8 inches in N-gauge. So open plan baseboards have been used, built from styrofoam, sandwiched between 3 layers of gaboon ply. Styrofoam has also been used for the scenery, covered with a layer of sculptor mould. All the buildings are scratch built, mainly from printouts of photographs of the current buildings. The station building, designed by Brunel, was unique due to the narrow space. Next to the tunnel is a large brewery, built by the railway company to replace existing breweries whose water supply the tunnel cut through. At the period modelled, it had become a cider factory, which later closed but has now reopened as the WHYTE Brewing Company. The back scene was photoshopped from photographs of the real location and printed on vinyl. Lorries and buses run along the front using the Falla moving vehicle system and internal batteries, with a taxi rank at one end storing up to 4 vehicles. The vehicles are controlled from a tablet connected by Wi-Fi, and RFID is used to identify and display where vehicles are. The lady at the station puts her arm out to stop the bus. Each of the 2 tracks can operate on DC or DCC, selected when the layout is set up. The small goods yard only had 1 train per day. To do any shunting necessitated blocking both main lines. The fiddle yard has 3 roads in each direction. each divided into sections so that 24 plus trains can be stored. The movement of trains in the fiddle yard is automated using Merg train-on-track TOTI detectors, which work with both DC and DCC. The boards and control panels are operated via a Merg C-bus system. Point signals and the car system are controlled by servo motors in Merg mounts. The signals are operated automatically as trains pass. Video cameras display views of the layout on screens at each end. RFID is used to automate whistle signals. A third of the time the lights are turned down to provide a dusk running mode. Trains have illuminated head and tail lights and illuminated carriages. Lighted signals and several of the buildings and buses with headlights.